Hello, I'm Aloysius. I am the owner of Haunted Harbor Tours. I'm a small business owner of a ghost tour company in the city of Annapolis, and I'm moving online. I'm trying to expand my company to the internet, and it's been a little bit difficult. Getting into YouTube video production and all of that, it's definitely very new to me, and it's caused some delays. This week, I was supposed to have a video out on Monday. I was in the process of working on this very long, difficult video project, and I realized it wasn't going to be out in time, and I started scratching my head. I started saying, well, what can I do? What can I make quickly? And I've been doing a pretty cool art project over the last few years. Some of my older work can be seen right over there. I'm making a deck of tarot cards, not for commercial use, not necessarily to ever have a full deck, although I would love to have, a point in my life where I can say, hey, would you like a tarot reading? No longer have to use the Hermetic Tarot or the Wild Unknown Tarot or any of the other tarot decks that I've come to love over the years, but to be able to pull out and bust out the Crystal Galaxy sci-fi handmade tarot deck. And so today we're doing the first of what's going to be at least a 78 video series. I'm going to be doing live coloring of the tarot card, the Moon. And so here you can see it as it was originally drawn. I like to draw it by hand and ink it by hand. And then what I do is I take it out to an industrial scanner and I scan it, which blows it up big so it can be about poster size. And then I color it in Adobe Photoshop. And so you're going to see, we're going to transition over. I'm going to vanish, hence why I'm not wearing sunglasses. The sunglasses are just because I tend to watch the screen as I talk, and I tend to be checking my notes and my sources as I'm telling my ghost stories. And so the sunglasses prevent the discomfort from my refusing to make eye contact with the web camera. But so I'm going to be doing a live paint of this, and I'm going to be talking about everything there is that I know and that I love about the moon as we go. So let's jump right over to that video footage. First thing I've got to do is I've just got to start cleaning up all of the extra pixels that you're seeing there. If you notice all that little whiteness in between the blue and all the whiteness and the black lines, those are all pixel artifacts that were left over from the scanning process. And so here I'm cleaning it up. I'm going to get as much of that nonsense out of there. I've already gotten rid of all the white and the black lines, and now I'm going in and I'm hunting for those extra pixels. And here you can see I'm erasing them. I'm trying to get this as clean as possible. However, this was a near impossible task because I was working not with non-photo blue pen, but with number 2 pencil. And so now I'm going in and I'm working on the two most important things in this image: the animalistic, the ego nature of our subconscious. This is our ego. These wolves represent our kind of difficulty from going from this feral-like animalistic state that we were created from, or that we're connected to at the very least, and into that of the more civilized man, the more civilized nature. The wolves and dogs in the moon, traditionally, it's a wolf and a dog, and the wolf represents our feral state, our natural desires, our animal instincts, whereas the dog represents our push and drive to become civilized. Now, these are the ego, and they also represent our fear and the dreamlike nightmare state that our subconscious can go to when anguishing over our fears. And we're going to talk a lot about the subconscious and the deep mind meanings of the Moon Tarot as we jump in and start talking about that crawfish. However, these wolves are kind of an amalgamation of both humanity and animal, representing that kind of duality between us, right? Our natural state, where we were at one point in the universe, and where we are today. And so now we're diving in, we're trying to color everything that's representative of the moon, all of the stone, all of the mushrooms, all of the moon, becoming a single color, setting the tone of the color palette for the rest of this image. Now, with the night sky, I'm trying to create something dreamlike here. All of these layers of color that I'm putting on top of each other, I'm stacking up, are to show this kind of dreamlike state. I'm even going to put a glow on the horizon. And this glow here is to show that, yes, this is Paleolithic man. This is man, or, a alien world in a Paleolithic state, but there may be some sort of advanced civilization, something that's producing a lot of pollution, light pollution in the night sky. And so beyond those mountains, there may be some sort of grand city. Now, with the aurora borealis that I'm putting in here, if you notice, I'm intentionally putting it behind the moon and behind a planet. Aurora borealis should be closer to us than the planet, than the moon. However, I'm going for a dreamlike state, and the moon is more important than this aurora borealis that I'm putting in here, the northern lights. And so both of these things are kind of taking prominent state over the moon itself. Now, we're going in, we're coloring the canyon. Let's talk about the phases of the moon and this kind of transformative idea. So the moon is one of many cards that not only represents a culmination of a life and the culmination of a story, but it also represents a bit of a higher power, like the star. And these two things, the moon is a phasing culmination point. It represents the idea that, unlike the tower, which is complete destruction of something that we were building, complete loss of something that we were working towards, or the sun, which represents, the culmination of life, the creation of life, the beginning of motherhood, the beginning of fatherhood, the beginning of, these kind of end game things. The moon is kind of representative of a small transformation, a kind of subtle transformation that continues. It is the culmination of a story, but it's a subtle culmination. The story will continue beyond this point. This is not endgame. And there's still much room for growth in the spiritual path. The moon is interesting because not only does it represent the need to grow on a spiritual path, it also can be the confusion of growth. How do we grow further? How do we grow spiritually when we're trying to seek these mysterious meanings, when we're trying to find meaning in something like the moon? How do we keep our mind focused on what we're supposed to be? The moon can be a distraction. It can be a diversion, to not focus your spiritual growth on the proper things. Those monoliths in the back right here, the coloring of these monoliths, really these monoliths represent the kind of false conclusions that we can make, and the kind of distractions that we can get into. And we'll get back to that. Right now, let's talk about this crawfish right here. This crawfish is intentionally put into a heroic pose. He's, or she, if you notice as you watch, right now it looks very masculine, right? It's all very masculine kinds of muscles, although I've seen some women that have some amazing muscles like this as well. However, this crawfish is supposed to represent the kind of ambiguous nature of masculine and feminine when it comes to the moon. All cards are either represented by male or female, and the moon is kind of both. And so here I'm taking this very masculine, heroic pose, and I'm going to put in a bunch of feminine colors that are representative of the lobster or the crawfish. Now, this is our subconscious fear. This is the manifestation of our fears and desires in a dreamlike state. So this crawfish is posed heroically, but he's also being viciously attacked by the ego, by what we desire. And this fear is one of the major meanings of these cards. He's trying to self-preserve. She is trying to continue forward, but this crawfish is about to be viciously attacked by these representations of fear. And it's left ambiguous. I mean, they're so close. These are going to clash together. Will the lobster, will the crawfish survive this encounter? It's kind of left in a mysterious, ambiguous way, but the heroic pose would imply that there is progression forward. This crawfish probably will survive, judging from the fact that it's in a heroic pose. If this were a comic, were to continue, he would move forward. And here I'm adding a lot of purple palette to this plant. But let's talk about the mysteries of the moon. The moon is one of the two most mysterious cards in the deck. The other, more mysterious of them all, the most mysterious card of the deck is that of the High Priestess. But the moon represents the mysteries of our subconscious mind and the mysteries and confusion of trying to find higher meaning in things that may be irrelevant. This monolith, and I'm intentionally choosing to put this in a Paleolithic state, this monolith, which I will be coloring very much like I'm coloring this paddle here, much more interesting than the paddle. The monolith is going to represent the kind of false conclusions that we can come to when we're seeking spiritual things. So often do we look at humanity and at the things that we're creating, and do we find false conclusions. This can be the kind of idea that, every life that you had lived in the past was, that in the past, all of your previous past lives were that of kings and nobilities and very grand ideas. Again, the wolves, the egos trying to say that, oh yes, I was important in a past life, and so too am I important in this. And these kind of grand ideas, the idea that all these spiritual things, the kind of spiritual meaning makes me greater than, makes me better than, when really we have to remain humble and we have to remain, learning and always moving forward. And so these monoliths are kind of both representing the great ideas. Obviously, the zodiac of this card is included in these monoliths, as well as the number of the traditional major arcana is included in this monolith, but also included in this monolith is something that might be interpreted as a UFO and might be interpreted as a helicopter. And this is to show that, like, sometimes when we seek the spiritual meaning, sometimes when we seek these greater ideas, we come to false realizations. We come to false conclusions, right? The conspiratorial mind takes over. And we look at these ancient monoliths created in a Paleolithic society, and we draw from the idea that maybe we knew, maybe aliens visited us, maybe we had future tech, and all of these things. Right, the monoliths can represent the false idea and the conspiratorial mind. Somebody seeking spirituality and seeking a higher knowledge could inevitably conclude that the earth is flat, or that aliens created us and made us amalgamations of themselves. Now, here's a comparison between my first coloring of this deck, which I did a few months ago, and the new coloring that I did in this. Overall, I think I'm largely happy with it. I'm very happy with the mountains and the new coloring of the monolith. I'm also happy with the coloring of the crawfish to an extent. However, I don't like doing light and shadow. That's not something I'm super comfortable with. Most of my art is devoid of soft shadow or hard shadow or any shadow really in general. And so this deck is really pushing me to do things that I'm not normally willing to do in my art. And this is forcing me to explore. So ultimately, I'm pretty happy with this, although I think I have a lot more room for improvement, if you know what I mean. And hopefully you enjoyed this. All right, so here we have the finished product. I'm mostly happy with it. I'm never really satisfied with my art. The only art that I've ever created that I'm truly happy with is a few of my magnetic paintings here, my abstractions. However, I do have a few tarot cards that are showing in galleries right now. I'm currently showing in the Maryland Hall art gallery for my Two of Swords that I created earlier, as well as Temperance is there as well, both of which I'm going to redesign at some point and do a live paint of. So this is the first of a series of tarot cards, and all of these tarot cards are going to probably be used as a Patreon reward system. $5 will get you a digital copy of this card right here. If you join my Patreon, there are going to be rewards and incentives going throughout. I'm also going to probably put up the line art of this so that you can do your own color. You can send them in. You can submit them on my Patreon page. Show me what you've colored this to look like, as well as other incentives. At some point, I might even put out a coloring book of my line art like this. But so yes, I am working on the Patreon stuff. Speaking of which, Amy, my first patron, I'm going to probably call you one of my little creeps, is probably what I'm going to call my patrons. Sorry about that. I just think it's the funniest thing in the world to call my patrons little creeps. So thank you, my first little creep, Amy. You are awesome. Thank you for joining my Patreon account and being a follower. And I'll probably send you a digital file for this. For your donation. And so with that, thank you all for joining. Please like, comment, and subscribe. The subscriptions are the most important part. Next week, I'm going to be putting out a video on the madness of Francesco Goya. I've also got a lot of tarot-themed things I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing an unboxing of both true, real, tarot decks, as well as the bootlegs of those tarot decks that I bought off of Wish.com. And so we're going to be doing a comparison to just kind of find out just how bad a Wish.com bootleg tarot deck can be. I'm quite excited about that. I'm just waiting on one of the final decks to arrive of the authentic decks so that I can really dive into that. Now, thank you all so much for joining. I really hope that you hit subscribe. That's the most important thing to me, because with subscribers, and hit the bell icon so you know when my videos come out, with subscribers, I can really grow. A link to my Patreon and my Facebook page are all going to be in the comments below. And here are a couple of cool videos that you might enjoy. Since this is kind of a magical themed thing, I'm going to do two of my more magical stories. A witch who asked the church for help in the 12th century, pulled from a kind of true testimonies, or, you'll hear in the video how true they really are, but I apologize. I think I'm blowing a vape cloud at the start of that video. I'll never blow a vape cloud again on video. And also a story of fairy and folklore from Ireland, in which a woman is possessed by the fairies and returns from the grave to feed her baby at night. And so definitely check one of those two videos out. They're both very fun and two of my absolute favorites. And so with that, thank you all so much for joining, and please hit subscribe. I'll catch you all soon.